So, but yeah, let's look at that tonight. We can do a workshop of astrology just for Ayurveda practitioners, so that they learn specific things to see for their client before the client even gets there. That's helpful.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, we'll plan a day, probably like an off weekend. Okay. Let's see where we are. Okay. We're going to get to the levels of the qualities of the mind in a second. So basically, just kind of to sum up. So why is a calm mind important? So the senses are clear and sharp, so that you can take in information, and this is important, process it clearly. When you're in an upset state of mind, a rajasic or a tamasic state of mind, which are the gunas of the mind, which we'll get to, you can't possibly see a situation clearly. And so what it is, we have to get centered and grounded. Okay? So when our mind is calm, we actually can see a situation for what it is. We can be in decision-making mode. We can be clear. And so the word for being present, which is ultimately what we strive for, is sukha. So this is living in the present moment. We're going to talk about the ahankar, or the ego, in a minute. And that's one of the, how do you say dampas in English? Like tricks, like traps of the mind. Is that the mind, especially this ego part of it, which we'll talk about in a sec, always wants us living like we talked about, in the future or the past. And it's only when we're in that present moment, in the now, that we actually can be calm and see things for what they are and make rational decisions. Has anyone ever heard of Byron Katie?
Yes.
Okay, she's got a great system called the 4 questions. And she forces you to question your thoughts, which is ultimately at the root of all of this. And at this moment, for instance, I'm broke. And she'll ask you, are you really broke? Yes, I'm broke. That's your value system, that's your belief. Is it 100% true that you are broke? Yes or no? Okay, if you say yes. And she starts to take you through a series of these 4 questions for you to see that at this exact moment, you are not broke. At this exact moment, do you have every single thing you need? And if we would go back to this state of the present, we have, at this exact moment, everything we need. Our house might be burning, but we're in a safe space. We may not have food for dinner, but our bellies are full at this moment. And if we can train ourselves, which is what all of these activities are for, that we term spiritual activities, is to take us to this state of mind. So that is why we're constantly trying to bring ourselves back to this point. So before we go into the levels of the mind, or the kind of segmentation, if you will, I just want to explain the elements and how they work in the mind. So we talked about being tangible, that if they went to a more denser state, like the Mahabhutas, but we still see the elements in the mind. So first we see ether in the heart. Okay, we see it in the space of the heart. If we create space in our life, in our breath, in our life, in our heart, then what do? We can actually bring ourselves to the present moment. So the space element lives in creating space in the heart when we're having a thought. Can you stop yourself for a moment to ask yourself, is what I'm thinking and what I'm feeling really true? If you could create that space, what are you doing? You're giving yourself a chance to get out of the emotion, to get out of that, sort of ravenous state that we get in when, oh my God, can you believe it? So as creating space in the heart, hence the location, as we say, of the inner mind. The air. The air quality goes with the manas. And we're going to go into detail of the 4 now. The manas is the outer mind. Okay. What do we know about the air quality? It moves. And we learned that this is constantly moving. So the movement of the mind gives it the Buddha of earth. Of air. The ego is the earth element. And we're going to get into that. The fire element you find in the buddhi, which is the intellect, or the discrimination. So when we talk about like tejas, or we talk about intellect, we talk about, having ideas, creativity. This is all the fire element of the mind. Okay. The water. What's the water element of the mind? You asked a question about that. The emotions. Okay, so this is the chitta. This is the water or the emotions. And what did we say? The space. So we have the heart. So we have the space, which is the heart. We have the air, which is the movement. And then we have the ahamkara, which is the earth element. Why is the ahamkara the earth element?
Because it's the most dense.
Okay, and think more material.
Because it's
Me. It's me, it's mine. So the acquisition, whether if it's of ideas or thoughts or things, it's the ego part, okay? So that's where we can see that the elements, in a more subtle form, are still involved in the mind. So let's talk about, first let me tell you a little bit about, and you have this in your slide, in your PowerPoint. It's just a quick little slide on the Shadrashan. And I referred quite a bit to Samkhya because that's what we use. In a lot of the different texts, the same words are used. And the point of this part of class is to really get a language for Ayurveda based on Samkhya. You're going to see manas and chitta and ahamkara and atman used in a lot of texts, no matter what the philosophies are. But I'm going to give you the specifics to Samkhya, to Ayurveda. So we'll read just a second from the Yoga Sutras. And in your slide, it mentions, according to Patanjali, the mind, chitta, here they specifically call it chitta, is made up of three components, manas, buddhi, and ahamkara. In Samkhya, we say that the mind is 4 parts. The mind is only one, and we have to kind of always go back to that. But the mind is of manas, the outer mind, the inner mind, which is chitta, ahamkara, which is ego, and then the atman, which is like our soul or our true self, and there's 2 parts to that, okay? So there's different ways in which a lot of these different philosophies will refer. But just so you understand the language, because since you are in this path, you're going to come across different books and different philosophies, and then you'll be like, oh, that sounds a little different, just so you know. So I put, in Vaisheshika, we have the Pancha Mahabhutas. It talks about time, it talks about direction, it talks about the mind, and it talks about Atman. In Samkhya, I mentioned the 4. In Vedanta, similar, but they add the Jivatman and the Paratman, which we'll mention as the overarching. For us, it's Purusha. Okay, so just so that you have the language clear. And you should have, do you have a slide on Samkhya? I don't know if I repeated that. If not, I forget that. But that was from your first class.
says, you read the different description of the mind, Shadarshan.
Okay, so that is the slide on the Shadarshan, so you can see the different terms that are used. And then I don't know if I put the Samkhya in there in the next one? No. Okay. If you want it again, if not, you have it from your first class, but if you want it again, I can just make you a copy of the one that I have. It's just very simple, and it goes down again explaining. Okay. So let's talk about the terminology. So we know number one concept is there's only one mind. Okay. However, we need to understand that these are the levels of the mind so that you can see the functions of the mind, because the mind has different functions. So each part, so I'll just kind of move that over so it's clear. We've got manas. This is our terminology for Sankhya. We've got chitta. The ahamkara. And then we've got the Aman, which is our Purusha. So we remember in Sankhya what happens. Purusha is everything. And he wants to experience the world. He wants to experience. So he creates this Prakriti. Okay? But that Purusha, which is what you guys referred to in your definition of yourself, is always the constant. That is what we are striving to reconnect with. Okay? When we have an individual consciousness, we call it Jivatman. Versus Paratman or Purusha or God. So you can always speak the language of your client. Some people call it the universe. So see where they're coming from. But this is that ultimate goal. Okay? So these levels tell us what we're working towards in terms of achievement, or what part of our mind is in function with each thing. Okay? The manas is the outer mind. This is directly related to the senses. So when we go into that cycle of the mind that's talked about in the Gita, of that desire, we're constantly here. This is where most people are functioning all the time. We see something, we want it. We want something else, we go after it. We're constantly in this seeking and instant gratification through the senses. Okay? Then we have the ahamkar, which is the I, or the ego. Oh, I forgot the buddhi. Sorry, I just realized that. So here, we're putting, this is what we're going to get to. Then we have the intellect. The buddhi is what's called the intermediate mind. Okay, so you've got the outer mind, you have the inner mind, the inner mind here, and you've got the intermediate with the buddhi. And it is the function of the buddhi that actually kind of intermediates if we're functioning in the manas or if we're functioning in the chitta. The chitta is the part of the mind that allows us to go in. When we want to quiet the mind, when we create that space to stop and question our thoughts. So this is very, very important. We're going to go through certain levels, because even this has 5 levels. Okay? But this is important. Because this is the terminology that we're using to try to understand what part is dictating who. So first of all, the first thing is that the soul, this is what we would look at as the soul, and this is a number one key concept in Ayurveda. The soul is not the mind. Okay? We are not getting closer to the soul through the mind, per se. It is only by quieting the mind and transcending the mind that we can see ourselves in that light, that we can see our true nature. But because these words are oftentimes interchangeable in many of the literature, and you'll hear chitta as consciousness is another, you'll sometimes get confused. So just know the soul is not the mind. This is the Atman. When we are individualized, inside of us, we have our own little piece. I call it the cookie dough. The Purusha is the cookie dough. Okay? And then we take the little piece of the cookie dough, or that little chocolate chip that's inside of us, is the same thing as that bigger portion of the cookie dough. Okay? So that little one is the Jivatman. But it's all back to connect to the larger quantity, if you will. Okay? The mind and the soul are independent faculties. They are not the same, and that's important to them. Okay? So what do we know about the external mind? We know that it is enslaved by the senses. Okay? And so we're constantly in a seeking state. When we have the buddhi allows for what? What does the intellect allow for? What function?
Discernment.
Discernment. What else?
Discrimination.
Okay.
Recognition.
Yes, because we've got the deed and dream in this movie. Okay, so recognition and memory of things. It's also where we problem solve. Okay? So this function is important for problem solving, for creating that sort of space that we need to find in order for ourselves to make decisions and see. So for instance, right now everyone went to lunch. Let's say that there was a platter of chocolate back there. What part of the mind would keep us from having all the chocolate or draw us to the chocolate? In a situation, what part is manas? The manas is what?
Is going to be aggravated.
Okay, so we're going to be like smelling it, oh my God, and everyone else is eating it, and I want it.
Yeah.
So it's that constant like, oh my God, I need to gratify or acquire something or do something. Okay. What part is going to be able to tell me, no,
The buddhi.
my booty. The booty is going to be like, oh, I want to be healthy. I have this intellect that's like helping me to discriminate that this is quote unquote good or quote unquote bad. Okay. And then what part of us is going to help us go deeper to see that my needs weren't met as a child, and that's why I'm craving the chocolate.
Chitta.
The chitta. Okay, so we're gonna get into that. So these are the functions of the mind. First of all, thinking. What part is responsible for thinking?
Inner chitta.
Well, thinking in what sense? Because it's kind of all thinking. It's just a matter of
Thinking, logical thinking, rational thinking.
Buddhi,
Okay.
yeah.
So thinking is your first function of the mind, right there. Okay. Second function of the mind is analysis. And what part is?
That's manas. Because you're analyzing what's around you through your senses.
Yeah, the analysis is also the buddhi. Yes.
Okay.
Isn't there a higher buddhi and?
Yes, there is a lower mind and a higher mind, and yes, we can break it down forever. Actually, in a lot of the metaphysical texts, in a lot of the theosophical literature,
Yes.
they talk about 7 bodies of man. There's
Yes.
actually a book, free
Yes.
book online, very good book. It's called 7 Bodies of Man. If you guys are interested, I'll send that one. It has it's like my mind, the Kabbalion to you. And in there, they actually separate the lower mind and the higher mind. Okay. So in the lower mind, we're looking more at manas. Where in the higher mind, we're looking more at buddhi and chitta. Okay. But that's why I said you're going to read a lot of stuff on this path that you're going to be like, what is it this, is it that, is it this, is it that? That's why I wanted to reveal just kind of the clear language for Ayurveda so you have that. But everyone's saying the same thing, but again, different philosophies usually look different terminology. The next function is calculation of problems. Okay, so the buddhi. Next is control of the senses. And that's the manas. If you're able to control the senses and create that space.
Calculation of the problems is buddhi.
Yes. So anything to do with that sort of logical mind. So let me give it to you kind of in a nutshell so you can kind of see the distinctions. The mind is one. What happens when Maritza's in the kitchen cooking? Is she still Maritza?
Yes.
She's still Maritza. She's just cooking and she's in the function of chef. When she's at the library, she's in the function of librarian. When she's here, she's in the function of student. Same thing with the mind. Depending on what function it is carrying out in your life at that moment will tell you what sort of area it's working. But ultimately, it's still the mind. And this becomes important when we do the chitta. Because that's when we start looking at the samskaras, that's when we start seeing when we connect with our intuition. And then people are like, oh, I'm in the spirit because I'm doing intuitive work. You're still in the mind. And that's the bless you. That's why this is important. So that example of no matter what, you're still Maritza, you're still the mind, you're still that oneness, you're just in the different functions. So just kind of keep that clear because that's an important distinction. Okay. So the manas, it's the outer mind. It's the part dominated by the senses and the organs. Okay, so we have a layer of emotion here. Okay? This is where we gather impressions on a daily basis. So it's very interesting because, and it kind of goes back to Ashley's question earlier, we'll see that our Prakruti, or mental Prakruti, is created at conception. So we've got that creation, if you will, of the mind there. We'll get to that. But then you've got your day-to-day constantly being bombarded, whether it's through the TV, whether it's through your friends, whether it's through your classmates. And it's another layer of thought. It's another layer of belief. It's another layer of emotion, which begins the conflict of your original thought at which you were created with. So even within the mind, in the layers, there's almost like a tug of war, there's a fighting. This is why the mind is that sort of leg of the stool that creates conflict in the body. Because there's so many layers to us, we're so complex in this one piece. Imagine if the body has all of these organs and all of these tissues and all of these cells that we can see it, and doctors have difficulty diagnosing it. It's still one body, but it's, a conglomerate of all of these pieces. How much more difficult it is for the mind. Because this is like, okay, I have to imagine a mind and all these layers, and it gets confusing. Okay? So the function that's behaving at the present moment, if you will, or in a situation, is the part of that mind that we're looking at. The manas is responsible for will, motivation, and action. How many of you have ever tried to go on a diet, either to lose weight or gain weight? No one?
Yeah.
Okay, or stop smoking, or go to sleep earlier, or change a habit. And what do we say? My willpower. And we're only as good as the willpower. It's like, oh, I have such good willpower. Today I didn't eat anything yummy. And then when you have horrible willpower, you eat all the chocolate that's in the back of the room. That's the outer mind. That is the manas. So that willpower lives in there. Is that enough? It's not. It's not enough. We have so many layers of mind. We are eating that chocolate or making that food choice, let's say, for so many other reasons than the willpower. But yet our judgment is, I suck because I couldn't stay away from the chocolate. Without taking into account that there's karma, that there's generations of stuff, that you might have not felt protected as a child, that maybe in your last 10 lifetimes you were poor. And you're putting all eggs in one basket. I am such a loser because I did not have the willpower to stay away from the chocolate. So with everything we know, we can now educate a client and yourself that I don't have to judge myself based on I couldn't do this, or I couldn't get up at whatever time in the morning, or I couldn't stay away from the coffee. But we're so used to judging it only on the willpower. So this is only one level. There's so much more. So is it fair to beat ourselves up based on that one level? No. And we will never change behavior, real behavior change. The mind will not ever really change if we only tackle it from the outer mind. So not only are we judging ourselves based on what we do, based on this willpower, or free will, or whatever, will you term it, but in addition, what happens to 99.9% of people that lose weight?
They gain it back.
Studies show that less than 1% of people that lose weight will gain it back within 5 years or less. It is zero success rate, ultimately. Because it's only working on the outer mind. It's only working on the concept that it's your will. And if you don't go to the root issues, those tendencies are there. Now let's say that you do keep off the weight. You're one of the few in the world that keep off the weight. But you haven't really changed fully your belief about food. You sneak eat, or you gorge and then vomit, or you're eating okay, but you have a cheat day. Love those of the cheat day. It goes to this part of the mind. If you don't go deeper and deeper and deeper in the layers, true behavior change isn't changing. That's why God, in His infinite wisdom, only gave you one thing in this lifetime to work on. And imagine how much it's causing waves in your ocean. So that's where we really look at. We've got this one thing, this one line of what it is, and we're constantly working on there. That's enough. Because we're not really, most of us are not going to those deeper layers. And even when we go to the deeper layers, we have so much karma and stuff from past lives that it's very difficult to penetrate. If we really understood how difficult change is, man, we would be like loving on ourselves rather than hating on ourselves. Because we'll see that, wow, we're doing pretty good with everything we have, quote unquote, against us. In the manas, the only purpose is for enjoyment. The purpose of that aspect of the mind, if you will, is for enjoyment, seeking pleasure, seeking desire. When we talk about the emotion, since this is part of the emotion story, let's talk a little bit about organs associated with emotions. We find joy stored in the heart. We find fear in the kidneys. This is, let me tell you that I experience this in 90% of my clients. My entire client base is referral. They don't know me, I don't know them, but a friend referred them. People will walk into my house, I offer them water or tea, and the first thing that they say is, can I use your bathroom? During a session, can I use your bathroom? After a session, can I use your bathroom? This is very symbolic, okay? We hold fear in our kidneys. And when people run, that's why it's called a running to the bathroom. We run from our fear. And when people come to a visit that you'll do in Ayurveda, they don't know, they might have heard, they might have read books. When they actually come to your office, that's going to be a very natural time. Pay attention when you get the desire to pee. Okay, if you've been drinking 16 ounces, okay. But if everything's because of the mind, then you knew that you were going to need to pee because you had fear where you were going. But we won't go to that extreme. But pay attention when you're in situations that you're fearful if you need to pee. That's your body telling you, I'm frightened. I don't know. What is this about? And so what I have done in my space is my house. I sit at the kitchen counter and I offer water or tea, and while the tea is boiling and we're talking, people go to the bathroom, and I kind of soften it up so they have an idea of what to expect. That's why you want to put in your space something that's comforting, a conversation piece, oh, what a pretty Buddha, incense, oh, what's that smell, to relax the person into the unknown. But pay attention for your own body when you're in a new situation or when you start seeing people. And we might experience that with clients that come like from the street. Oh, can we use your bathroom? Because they don't have a clue what to expect. Even though they're ready, they made the appointment, their friend told them, they heard about something, and so you'll find that in the kidneys. The spleen. The spleen is pensiveness, is like overthinking. That's where we hold that sort of pensiveness. And the liver holds anger. The lungs have a lot to do with like fear of dying, like if you think gasping for air or feeling suffocated. The hands are people that feel that they're going to lose something, that they're not going to be able to grasp it, or they lost someone. I had a client the other day who came, her hand, she could not move her hands, her golf club falls. Her mother just died. So I recommend that when someone comes, ask the person 2 questions. Of course, how long have they been suffering from the issue? And what happened 6 or 8 months before or after that? So you can kind of get an idea of what they're processing in their body. Okay. So this is the manas portion. My absolute favorite that I can talk about all day is the ahamkar. So, this is the ego. When do we develop our ego? How does the ego develop? How do we understand mind? You'll notice kids around 1, 2 that are like mine. And I made a comment once. He said something about Prem, that you noticed that he used to go like this and then now he went like this or something. Mm-hmm. So yeah, we start paying attention and observing our family, our friends, and our parents as we're older. But we actually fully develop this ego, this sense of I-ness at 7. The first 6 years up to 7 years of life, it is our chitta, or our subconscious, and the chitta has 5 levels we'll get to, but it's the subconscious mind, or the inner mind, that is completely exposed to absolutely everything. When you're crawling on the floor, when you're in your newborn crib, when your parents are fighting and they think that you don't hear it, when you're 3 or 4, when it's thundering outside and the dog is barking, that child's mind, when they say it's like a sponge, it absolutely is. Everything is being stored in that. At 7, we have an understanding that there is a clear difference between you and me. And that's why kids go to school at 7. That's where all of this starts. We have this sort of division. So the ego's function, okay, remember we were talking about before, what is the purpose and nature of the body? To sustain life, to protect us. That's the ego's function at the mental level. If you are invading my space, you know that they say we have like a perimeter that if someone steps into our space, we naturally walk back. That's the ego. That's the part of the mind that is like, whoa, you are too close. We only allow, when we love someone, to embrace or kiss us or make love to them. Then we allow them into that space. Okay, so the ego's function is to create a sense of separateness between you and me. And so we spend most of our time in the outer mind or the manas or the ego mind. We're constantly vacillating. Remember, it's only one, so I say vacillating if they were separate, but you know what I'm saying. We're constantly in this. I want something, I want it because I want it. So we're in this outer mind area most of the time. Now, of course, we're given a project at work, and we need our rational mind, or we have to decide if we're going to make a right-left, and the booty kicks in temporarily, and then the chitta is working 24/7 in the background. So when I create a sense of separateness between you and me, I'm better, I judge you, I did this, you did that. It's a constant separation from the true nature that we're all one. And this is where like the majority of problems occur in this sense of our day that we're constantly like trying to protect. We think that we're always at war. We're constantly in the state that if we're at war, that someone's going to take something from us. And so the ego's number one function is to keep us either in the past or keep us in the future. What's in the past?
What's happened, what our impressions are, what we need to protect ourselves from. Experiences, yeah.
All of our experiences. 10 years ago, I was young and beautiful. In 8th grade, I had the cutest guy. Oh my God, before I had my kids, I had the hottest body. We're constantly going to what was. And what's in the future?
You know?
What we want to be.
What we want to be. I'm not there yet, Ashley said earlier when she was talking about her son golf. I shouldn't write this, I'm not there yet. I'll get there. It's añoranza, longing. Longing for what will be. And so if we constantly are living in the past, and we established that if thought is just taking us from things to things to things, jumping from one thought to the other, reminding us, oh, this reminded me of mom, it reminded me of the dress, and my mom when I was important, it took the... We're always going in the past, or we're always going to the future with what will be. When I am, when I have enough, when I graduate, when my children grow.
When I retire.
So we're always living there, outside. The outer mind is what completely disconnects us with our own. We're never going to find it outside.
Because then we're done.
Ever! But yet, our waking moments are what I had or what I will be. So our natural function is outside of ourself. So how do we become enlightened? Like, how do we fix this? How do we live? We live in the Sutta, in the present, in the be here now. Great book, Ram Dass.
The ball of now.
Yeah, that's also another great book. But the be here now. Beautiful. And so we have to pay attention and recognize when we're in this moment. The buddhi allows us to do that. It's that intellect. We were given an intellectual capacity. Okay? Remember, from the Mahat comes the Buddhi. It comes directly from that cosmic consciousness. Is the intellect to say, wait a minute, I'm not 20 years from now, and I'm not 17 anymore. Let me go back to the now and see what I need to do now. So that's the one we need to employ more of. And so when we catch ourselves in ego, in past and future and past and future, and mine and I'm different and we're all, we have to stop it. That's where you use your will. Not because it's going to change the whole picture. There are way more levels. But that's where we can actually say, I have, at this moment, the ability to either be enslaved to the ego and live outside of myself, or do more inner work and go inward. And so we have that opportunity all the time. So let's bring up a situation. Who is allowed to be spiritual? Everyone? Okay. What requirements are there?
In this day and age, it doesn't seem like many.
What can we do at any particular moment to be in the inner? Let's just use that.
Stop.
So stopping. That's the first thing. Is stopping ourselves. And then what? Stopping isn't enough. Stop yourself. Breath. One of the reasons why we breathe is so that we can say, wait a minute. And so every single person has the right and the ability, regardless of socioeconomic status, whether they can do a TTC, whether they can come to Ayurveda class, there are people that have to work 3 jobs. But you can teach that person that at any moment they can be in the present moment. And then that, they've already, to a degree, conquered that. So it's not, because this is what we hear all the time, when I have enough money, when I have time, when my kids go off to school. No. At the present moment. Any moment is the present moment. If it's 12 o'clock, 11:59 was the past, and 12:01 is the future. So at that moment, when do we start diets? On Monday, normally, but right. At this exact moment, I can choose to change. At this moment, we don't have to wait for permission of anybody. But we have to employ the faculty of Buddhi, and then the Chitta, which is the inner mind, which we'll talk about. Okay, so the ego provides this separate sense of self. So what happens at 7 years old? At 7 years old, we develop our personality. We have learned from 6 to 7 years how this world works. Our parents have said nothing. Our parents have done, or they have done nothing. And we have said, oh, that's how this thing works, huh? And that in astrology is your ascendant. What you learn from your parents on how to navigate those outdoors is your ascendant. That is the mask that you're going to wear for the rest of your life to handle all this crazy. And most of us live in function of that mask and never know anything about our true selves. In philosophy, you'll hear a lot about the person that wrote the Kabbalion is Hermes Trismegistus. In astrology, you hear Mercury. This mythological person is because when you go, if you've ever been to Greece, in the Oracle of Delphi, everything in the world is mythology. It's amazing. No new thought has ever happened. None of you is ever going to have a new thought. No new story is ever going to be written. I don't care if your guy's name is John and my guy's name is Ty. It's the same story of man and woman in love breaks the heart. No new story has ever been written. So where does all the information come from? It comes from the myth. It comes from the stories that we're all just reliving over and over again. In the Oracle at Delphi, which is like this place that they used to go, like if they went to a tarot reader, if you want to make it modern day, it says, "Man, know thyself, and you will know the wonders of the universe." We don't know ourselves because of the personality, because of the ego, because of the mask that we wear. That's why when I'll just pick on you for a second, when we were talking about the smoking, I'm like, go beyond it. The smoking is a mask. The diet is a mask. The CEO position is a mask. And so in order for us to know ourselves, we have to go to the crap of the 6 years of our childhood, plus everything from past lives, which is in the Chitta. But the first thing we do at 7 is create the ego. And from there we function the rest of our life. That is where we would decide if something is good, if something is bad. I'm going to be the best in my class. I'm going to have X amount of money. I have a client now, he's 33, he's advanced, who when he was a very little boy said I would be a millionaire at 30. He achieved it. He's 33, he's destroyed. He doesn't care about the million. He has no happiness. He can go anywhere in the world, he can have any woman that he wants. He sits to come take classes on metaphysics and this stuff because he wants to understand how this all works. So we set these limits for ourselves. It's one of the reasons why we have the 4 stages of life in Ayurveda. You have to meet those desires. You have to seek the knowledge. You have to get the position. You have to have the equity before you can sit to achieve moksha. But it is the personality or the ahankara, the ego, that does not let you. You're constantly in function of seeking something, or I'm better than you, or it's outside of me. And we know that truth exists only within, when we really go inward. But that's the whole function. So anyone ever see the cartoon of the devil and the angel?
Yes.
Okay, the devil and the angel, that devil is our ego. Our entire spiritual fight, if you will, when Jesus goes into the forest to fight the demon, the devil, is the ego. That's it. This entire existence of ours is, did you beat the ego or did you get the spirit? If you can get one a day, it's the constant moment to moment that we are challenged with the ego. And if we're constantly falling into it, then we don't change. But the moment that we're able to capture it with the booty, with the intellect, say, oh, this is the trick, the ego, don't fall into it, then you can create change. That's when you can fight your senses. That's when you can go on that scale of duality, get closer to the plus. So you need to employ all of these faculties together in order to beat that. But that ego is so strong because that is what you said, I am going to do this so that I can make it out there at 7 years old. So what I tell all my clients is that we're just a bunch of 6-year-olds having conversations. Everybody here is 6 or younger. And when you fight with someone, or when you yell at someone, or you're upset about something, it's just your 4, 5, or 6-year-old self having a temper tantrum. Because by 7, yeah, you have your... But when it's emotion, your manas, you're reacting to what happened when you were younger. You bypass the, oh, I'm supposed to be this responsible adult. So this is like tough stuff, people. This is like constant. No wonder everyone's stressed out. And they're stressed out about the outer world. They have no clue about the stress happening inside. Imagine, you leave that world behind. You still have inner fights. And so we think it's the neighbor, we think it's the traffic, we think it's the out stuff. It's just the inner fight that's going on inside. Which part is going to win at this moment? Which part is going to win today? That's it. That's why one law, beautiful, as within, so without. As above, so below. This is called the law of correspondence. It's one of the laws in Hermetic philosophy. Every single thing that's happening on the outside is a reflecting of what's going on inside. I had construction done at my house a few weeks ago. We were redoing the curb. Oh my God, this poor, I was dying. Dying, I couldn't handle it, the saw. That was all the stuff going on. About a day or two before they finish, I start calming, I'm back into my groove. All of a sudden, the construction's almost done, nothing bothers me. Is it the construction, or was it my own inner construction that I was going through during that week? I couldn't stand myself, I was dying, I was like, oh, let me out of this body. So that was simply manifesting what was going inside. That's it. The fight is internal. But the ego makes us believe that the fight is outward. So we fight with our parents, with our children, with our in-laws, with our bosses. And every single time that you have a fight, you're pissed at yourself. That you're angry with someone, and so the booty allows you to stop. That's why it's the intermediate. Because it can kind of stop the outer mind of the ahamkar and the manas to get you into the chitta, which is, oh wait, let me go in. So that battle we are constantly having. Okay? So when we do that astrology, I'll go more into the personality and the ego, but it's amazing. Because that is the mask that you show the world. That's what you want to pretend that you are. And that is one of the biggest fights that we have. I knew a man, this must have been about 12, 13 years ago, and I didn't know anything about this. I knew, but I didn't know that I knew. And I was like, this person puts on a show. I worked with him. Like, this person goes home and cries. I felt the sadness. And I said that to him one day, and he's like, absolutely. He's like, that's how, he goes, it's all a show. And so that's what happens to a lot of us. We go out into the world with our ego. This is who I am. And then we go home and we drink, or we eat, or we gamble. You see that 24/7. You're just seeing a bunch of little kids. All those men at those tables are 6-year-old men.
They're all Chuck E. Cheese.
They're all Chuck E. Cheese that didn't get the party that they wanted. That's all that is. And they're having a little temper tantrum. Then you go home and you find something. Drink it, eat it, gamble it, shop it down. I cannot accept the fact that I just spent all day out there pretending to be what I'm not. Mind, body, spirit. It all goes back to that tripod. And so we have to do something to go back to being truthful. That's separated us.
So is there, because there's kind of like when you're at work in a normal job kind of thing.
That's the disclaimer. You see it right there.
No, in any job, in any profession, there's kind of like how you have to be in that situation. And then there's kind of how you are around family and stuff. Is there a way to be both of those and still be living within your truth? Like,
the only way is to be the same person in both.
okay.
I'll give you an example. I have a lot of this. You know, I do this work. I get a lot of like professional people, and they believe in all of this. And I tell everyone, look at this, you're a witch. You should do this. You know, no, I can't. All of the disclaimers. We were all in past lives burned at the stake, and we all are
course,
scared
yeah.
to do it again, and that's really the story of all of us. But I get that a lot. And then you see it manifest. I had this one particular client that just came a few weeks ago. She's a psychotherapist, hypnotherapist, Ericksonian is a hypnotherapist, and the woman has a gazillion degrees. She's now getting a PhD. Her first session, she's been coming out for a while, but her first session was that. This part of you, the witchy, just this because that's my word that I use, the witchy part of you don't want to bring into your work. I said, until you bring that part of you into your work, you are not, everybody has fear, no, okay, because I said fear, you're not going to get, because her complaint was she wasn't getting the clients. She had so much education, so much knowledge, and she really believed in what she did, but the people weren't coming. The money was not coming. And it's that. So she's doing part of her doctorate, or doing her doctorate at Nova, and works part of the week at the clinic there. And I'm like, bring this into your sessions. It's going to change everything. I can't, that I can't. Yes, you can. She finally gets an advisor or someone who runs a clinic there that's really into this stuff, gives her permission, which then she starts to kind of bring in her hypnosis and her stuff. And so what is it? We're constantly looking for permission. We're all little kids. We're looking for mom and dad to say, yes, it's okay. When I worked at Kaiser, when I ran the school, I had just started studying astrology. I ran a nursing school. And I was going to do astrology on everybody and anybody that walked into my office. So before class and after class and during breaks, I had these dice. They're called astro dice. I recommend them to everybody. On my desk, and students would spin the dice, and I would tell them stuff. And then if I had their chart, I would do a reading for them. It was how I practiced. And that was just the way it was. I am a dean of a nursing school, but I am an astrologer, and this is what I'm about. And outside of the office, I had a thing that was the thought of the day, and it was a spiritual thought. And when students fail, the hardest thing to do is to tell a nursing student who has just spent a year in school and spent $12,000, $15,000, $20,000 that they're not going to be a nurse, that they have to come back for another 4 months. That's very hard. But these concepts are my truth. And I would say, you're going to see that there's a lesson in this. And there, some people would spit in your face, and they wouldn't come back, and others would come back, and to this day will reach out to me and be like, you were right, I learned this, or I met my husband, or it gave me time to fix something at home. Because my philosophy, you have to go back to the S of the triad. If your philosophy is that, then you're going to live that anywhere you are. How can you be black today, white tomorrow, Cuban one day, Mexican the other? You can't. Why is that okay for your physical body, but not for your mind and for your spirit? You can't change your body. You can't change your nationality. No one expects you to show up as a Cuban, well, you're part Cuban, but as an African American tomorrow at work.
I didn't know that.
Nobody expects that. But it's okay that we're supposed to show up with a whole different set of mind rules. Why? Who said that? It's our fears and our insecurities and our parents and our past lives and our samskaras and our karmas. That's not going to be accepted. And I was the astrologer. And when I started at my other job, I told my boss, my goal is to do my spiritual work, my practice from home. This is a temporary. And within 3 months, I was working full-time from home, growing my practice and running the school. When you speak your truth, things happen. Things happen for you. And I've messed up a lot. I'm by no means an example, please. I'm just giving you examples of where my truth, I spoke it and I was, given gifts and awarded for. But think of that. If you are not going to change your nationality or the color of your skin, dependent on the job that you're in, why are you expected to change your philosophy of life or your